A warm welcome to all our viewers. I'm your host Akansha Parimu and you're watching another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's begin the show. India is deepening its footprint in the global south through stronger economic ties, bold diplomacy and meaningful development partnerships. President Draupadi Murmu's recent visits to Angola and Botswana reaffirmed this commitment, opening new avenues in energy, infrastructure, education, technology, and wildlife conservation. The visit highlights India's vision of partnership that inspires, empowers, and builds together, never imposes. A report.
India continues to emerge as a nation that inspires rather than imposes, guided by inclusive development, South-South cooperation, and mutual respect. President Draupadi Murmu's recent tour of Angola and Botswana reflects this spirit. Beginning in Luanda, she met President João Lourenço to advance collaboration in energy, infrastructure, and defense. The two countries also signed MOUs on fisheries, aquaculture, marine resources, and consular cooperation, strengthening people-to-people ties and opening new doors for partnership.
भारत और अंगोला की साझेदारी आपसी विश्वास, परस्पर सम्मान और हमारे लोगों के समृद्धि भविष्य की साझा दृष्टि पर आधारित है। हम द्विपक्षीय साझेदारी को बढ़ाने और क्षेत्रीय व वैश्विक मामले में विचारों के आदान प्रदान के लिए निकट सहयोग कर रहे हैं।
During her visit, President Draupadi Murmu toured the historic St. Michael Fortress and warmly engaged with the Indian community, acknowledging their contributions and strengthening the bond with the diaspora. She also welcomed Angola into the International Big Cat Alliance and the Global Biofuels Alliance, reaffirming India's commitment to peace, sustainability, and a greener, more stable future for Africa.
Se encontra na mais alta medida para abordar temas essenciais da relação das relações entre si. É essencial para podermos dinamizar a implementação das decisões que têm sido retomadas de forma bilateral entre nossos governos.
Angola has agreed to join the International Big Cat Alliance and Global Biofuel Alliance, two initiatives spearheaded by the Government of India.
President Murmu's visit to Botswana marked the second leg of her Africa tour, reinforcing India's expanding engagement with the Global South. The historic visit underscored India's vision for an inclusive, interconnected Global South rooted in democracy and people-to-people ties. In their wide-ranging talks, the two leaders advanced cooperation in education, defense, digital technologies, agriculture, and capacity building. President Murmu also thanked Botswana for translocating 8 cheetahs to India under Project Cheetah, a powerful symbol of shared commitment to conservation and global biodiversity.
We are now formally handing over the cheetahs that have been donated to the Republic of India, as you heard from the experts. They are part of a large population here.
Through strengthened diplomacy, development collaboration, and people-centered initiatives, India and Africa are shaping a future where nations rise together, rooted in mutual respect and a common vision for a more equitable world.
Bangladesh is going through one of its most troubled and unstable periods. A court in Dhaka has given former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina the death sentence for alleged crimes against humanity linked to last year's student protests. She was tried in her absence while staying in New Delhi, and she says the decision was already fixed and driven by politics. But the bigger worry lies outside the courtroom: the rise of Islamist extremism, the weakening of government institutions, and the increasing influence of Pakistan-backed groups in the country. With the interim government struggling, Bangladesh now faces a crucial moment between protecting its democracy or sliding into chaos.
চানখারপুলে 6 জনকে হত্যা করার মাধ্যমে যে অপরাধ করেছেন সেটার দায়ে তাকে দোষী সাব্যস্ত করে মৃত্যুদণ্ড প্রদান করেছেন।
Former Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, the architect of the country's economic rise and a bulwark against terrorism, was sentenced to death by the International Crimes Tribunal in Dhaka. The judges ruled that Hasina ordered lethal force on student protesters, including close-range shootings at Dhaka University. Hasina was convicted on 3 charges: incitement to violence, ordering killings, and failing to prevent atrocities. The case relied heavily on a former police chief who turned state witness after her ouster. Hasina refused to return from India, calling the proceedings illegitimate, and today Dhaka remains under lockdown. Armoured vehicles, city-wide checkpoints, and half of the capital's police force deployed. Inside the packed courtroom, the ruling was delivered in stark language.
It is hereby ordered that accused Sheikh Hasina be found guilty on 3 counts under charge 1. Count number 1, incitement. Count number 2, order to kill. Count number 3, inaction to prevent the atrocities and failing to take punitive actions against the perpetrators. For all these 3 counts, we have decided to inflict her with only one sentence, that is sentence of death.
The verdict sends shockwaves across Bangladesh, but also raises serious questions about political neutrality, procedural fairness, and the motives behind the trial. The roots of this crisis lie in the violent student uprising of 2024, triggered by the High Court's reinstatement of a controversial quota system in government jobs. Clashes between anti-quota demonstrators and activists from Hasina's Awami League spiraled into a nationwide violence. A UN report estimated 1,400 deaths, though Hasina has repeatedly demanded an independent investigation disputing the numbers. The Awami League government fell on 5th August 2024, forcing Hasina to flee to India. But what followed was even more unprecedented. Within weeks of Hasina's ouster, the interim government began a systematic campaign to erase the political legacy of the Awami League, the party that delivered Bangladesh's liberation in 1971. Hasina's father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's statue was pulled down. His historic residence turned museum was burnt. The Awami League was banned. Minorities aligned with the party were subjected to targeted violence. And into this vacuum stepped Bangladesh's Islamist hardliners, Hifazat-e-Islam, Jamaat-e-Islami, and smaller extremist-linked networks. Groups that had been heavily suppressed under Hasina's 17 years in power are once again asserting themselves. Regional analysts warn that Bangladesh today resembles the pre-2000s environment when extremist movements thrived under state indifference. India's former High Commissioner to Bangladesh, Pinak Ranjan, says the verdict is not just political, it's geopolitical.
The verdict is part of the political vendetta that has been organized and has been going on against Sheikh Hasina and the Awami League. So it is a continuation of that process. As you know, the judiciary has been weaponized there with former judges, and many judges have been removed, and the interim government has put in their own people there. So nobody is surprised by this verdict. And I think it means that now the Awami League has to decide whether they will carry on the struggle or they keep quiet, which I doubt very much. I think the struggle will go on.
This is a dramatic warning, but one that matches the pattern emerging on the ground. Pakistan-backed networks that were once dismantled by Hasina are resurfacing with alarming speed. Even Indian intelligence sources have flagged a Bangladesh linkage in the recent Delhi terror blast, a development unthinkable under Hasina's counter-terror regime.
there is a very strong belief that Hasina, the agitation conducted against Hasina, was also had a foreign hand in it, or in different ways, and because a decision was taken somewhere that she's not cooperating in with that country, which wanted certain facilities there in Bangladesh, etc. These are all in the media already, and these have been discussed, and so these things are also there. And we have seen the interim government moving very close to Pakistan, and there's a lot of ISI, traveling, Pakistani generals and others traveling to Dhaka. During the bomb blasts in Delhi, for example, I just read somewhere that they have also unearthed a Dhaka connection. Now, that could very much be the LET, which has gone there and started operating from there, or the Jaish or whoever. Because this is what Pakistan would aim for.
As the interim administration led by Muhammad Yunus governs with little electoral legitimacy, ordinary Bangladeshis say the country has plunged into instability.
Last 17 years, when Sheikh Hasina was the Prime Minister, the country has been improved by the developed by the economy, structure, all those. शेख हसीना की टाइम में जो हुआ था, जो बांग्लादेश अभी पीपल बोल रहे हैं आगे भालो छिलाम. It's been our previous time was more better. We have been fooded, we have been eat, we have been sleeping. There is a democracy, peaceful life. So अभी जो यूनुस की गवर्नमेंट की जो टाइम जा रहा है, ये इतना लोग अभी इतना सफर कर रहा है कि यूनुस की ये शोषण बना रहा है. बांग्लादेश में एक शोषण हो रहा है, एक डेजर्ट, एक मरुभूमि चल रहा है. बांग्लादेश की लोग अभी रो रहा है शेख हसीना के लिए कि ये जिंदगी कैसे था, अभी क्या बुरी जिंदगी हो गया. ये इंटरनेशनली भी इतना फोकसिंग हो जाएगा कि यूनुस की नोबेल भी जाने वाला. यूनुस की जो नोबेल मिला है, जो खरीद कर वो भी जाने वाला. यूनुस की हालत इन फ्यूचर में सबसे बुरी हालत होगा इन फ्यूचर में बांग्लादेश में.
From rising food prices to collapsing law and order, Bangladesh today is struggling with a governance crisis that many blame directly on the interim administration. With elections due in early 2026, Bangladesh stands at a dangerous crossroads. The death sentence risks igniting massive street unrest. Islamist groups are regaining political space. Pakistan-linked networks are rebuilding quietly. Minorities fear renewed communal violence. State institutions, police, judiciary, administration appear deeply politicized. Security analysts warn that if this political vacuum persists, Bangladesh risks being overtaken by extremist actors, reversing much of the stability and progress built up over the past 2 decades.
Time now for Asia This Week, the stories from across the continent.
3 years after Sri Lanka's abrupt fertilizer ban crippled harvests and exacerbated the island nation's financial collapse, rice farmer KKG Tilaka Bandara has returned to chemical crop nutrients. Former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa banned all chemical fertilizers in April 2021 to showcase Sri Lanka as a model for organic farming, but the move caused a sharp drop in rice output, the country's biggest crop and staple food for its 22 million people. Sri Lanka imported 783,420 metric tons of rice, mostly from neighbouring India, the world's largest exporter of the grain, worth $292.5 million at the height of the 2022 crisis, its first large-scale rice imports since the government banned chemical fertilizers. Over the past 3 years, rice imports have swung from a low of 29,606 tons in 2023 to 1,67,000 tons in the first 10 months of 2025. Imports fell in 2023 as favorable weather boosted domestic harvests and farmers began gradually returning to chemical fertilizers, but have jumped this year after poor weather hurts yields. This year's higher imports are also aimed at curbing food inflation. Sri Lanka's rice output is expected to reach around 2.8 million metric tons in the current season to February, slightly higher than the 2.74 million tons gathered last season. The country consumes about 3 million tons of rice annually, relying on imports to bridge the shortfall. Dense toxic smog blanketed Pakistan's second biggest city Lahore last week, with air quality hitting hazardous levels and posing a health threat to the city's millions, particularly those working outdoors and exposed, data from the Swiss group IQ Air showed. Fruit vendors who ply their trade outdoors by buying fruits at wholesale markets and then selling them on carts and roadside stalls say they are especially vulnerable to health problems caused by the smog and struggle to make ends meet if they can't work due to the sickness. Each winter, plain areas of Punjab province, of which Lahore is the capital, are gripped by thick smog as cold, heavy air traps pollutants from the construction dust, vehicle emissions and agricultural fires. When tensions started flaring up again between Japanese and Chinese governments last week, it was still business as usual for Tokyo-based tour operator East Japan International Travel Service. When China started issuing travel warnings for its citizens in Japan, the company started receiving a flurry of phone calls from clients over the weekend asking if it was still safe to visit. Cancellations began on Monday, November 17, initially affecting only about 10% of the company's remaining business for the year. But by Tuesday, November 18, it became clear that the small firm dependent on Chinese clients and focused on large cultural, corporate and government group tours had been pulled into a major diplomatic clash between Northeast Asia's two biggest economies. The tension stems from Japanese PM Sanae Takaichi's recent remarks that a Chinese attack on Taiwan threatening Japan's survival could prompt a military response. Both Japan and China have since issued travel warnings to their citizens.
Moving on, in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the appointment of Faisal Mumtaz Rathor as the new Prime Minister has triggered serious outrage. Political activist Amjad Ayub Mirza alleges the move is a scam, accusing Islamabad of imposing a leader linked to a buried criminal case and an election marred by irregularities. As frustration grows over POJK's collapsing political process, concerns mount over rising instability under the new setup.
Political activist Amjad Ayub Mirza has slammed the appointment of Faisal Mumtaz Rathor as the new Prime Minister of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, calling it a scam and proof of a collapsed political process. He alleged Rathor was linked to a 2013 gang rape case in Muzaffarabad, claiming the case was buried and evidence disappeared. Mirza also questioned the legitimacy of Rathor's election, alleging that refugee seat holders were improperly allowed to vote despite clear objections by the Joint Awami Action Committee.
To select him as the Prime Minister of POJK is a scam. I mean, the guy has a scandal in his baggage. He is said to have been involved in a gang rape back in 2013 in Pearl Continental Hotel in Muzaffarabad, the capital city of Pakistani occupied Jammu Kashmir. And at the time, the President Yaqub's son was involved in this as well. And everything went hush-hush. And it is said that the girl who was the victim was a student of masters from Jammu Kashmir University, and they lured her, invited her for an interview, a job interview for a bank. But they locked her up and they raped her all night. And she then went back to her house and told her parents, and her parents are said to have poisoned her to save themselves from the shame. And she was declared dead. There were protests against that as well. But then everything was cleared. Everything has vanished. The proofs. And this guy is now the Prime Minister of Pakistani-occupied Jammu Kashmir.
Mirza further alleged Rathor's priority lie in serving Pakistan's political and military establishment rather than the people of POJK. He said public frustration is growing over an administrative style system where leaders are installed without public participation.
So I think that his selection as the Prime Minister of Pakistani occupied Jammu Kashmir has once again totally discredited the whole political process in Pakistani occupied Jammu Kashmir. Basically, there is no process. It's all like an administrative affair. Remove this and bring that, remove that and bring him, or her. This is what is going on in Pakistani occupied Jammu Kashmir, and people are fed up.
The activist cautioned that political and social instability in POJK will increase under the new setup.
Let's head to the vibrant Pushkar Fair, where Rajasthan's golden sands burst with color, culture and devotion. Once a camel trader's haven, Pushkar now shines as the world's grandest cultural festival. From dazzling camels to folk dances to soulful music and divine prayers, every heartbeat here tells a story because Pushkar isn't just seen, it's experienced.
Nestled in Rajasthan's golden desert, Pushkar is a sacred town known for its holy lake, ancient ghats and powerful spiritual aura. Every step here radiates devotion and peace. And when the Pushkar Fair begins, these sands burst into a spectacle of color and culture that attracts visitors from across the world. And when the Pushkar Fair begins, these sands burst into a spectacle of color and culture that attracts visitors from across the world. What began centuries ago as a camel and livestock market has evolved into a grand cultural carnival blending faith, festivity and commerce. From camel trading to folk music, dance, crafts and traditional games, Pushkar becomes a living celebration of India's soul. Camels adorned in vibrant attire, contests of beauty and grace, and tourists joining local traditions. This is not just a fair, it's an experience. Pushkar isn't just witnessed, it's felt.
It was our first time in Pushkar, and we're very happy because we could have a chance to see the camel dance and camel competition with all this nice stuff they wore. So it was great, and we like it very much.
We've come to see the camels' decorations, and which were outstanding, and the dancing, which was amazing. I love the community. I love that everybody is coming together and enjoying life and having a wonderful time.
Legend says Lord Brahma dropped a lotus to the earth, and where its petals touched, the sacred Pushkar lake was born. To honor this divine moment, the only temple in the world dedicated to Lord Brahma was built here, a 14th century marvel that still radiates his cosmic energy. As the sun sets over the sacred lake, the Grand Pushkar Maha-Aarti casts a golden glow, a divine symphony of faith and devotion that draws every soul into its embrace.
Shiva, 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 Shambho. Shiva, 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 Shambho.
यहाँ ब्रह्मा जी ने फिर वज्रनाभ राक्षस उस कमलनाभ का शस्त्र बनाकर उस वज्रनाभ राक्षस को मारा। फिर उसके उपलक्ष्य में एक यज्ञ किया जाता है, सृष्टि यज्ञ। तो ब्रह्मा जी ने यहाँ ब्रह्मा गायत्री के साथ में सृष्टि का यज्ञ किया। सृष्टि यज्ञ के बाद एकादशी से पूर्णिमा, कार्तिक मास की एकादशी से पूर्णिमा, गोपाष्टमी से ये सारी तैयारियां चालू होती है कार्तिक मास में, और 5 दिन महास्नान इस ब्रह्म सरोवर में लोग भारत के सनातन हिंदू धर्मावलंबी एकादशी से पूर्णिमा तक यहाँ महास्नान करने के लिए आते हैं।
Here, the culture of India comes alive in its purest form. Every evening transforms into a festival of folk dances, traditional flavors, and captivating performances. Adding to the magic, sand artist Ajay Rawat paints Rajasthan's glorious past on grains of desert gold. leaving the audience mesmerized by stories shaped from the sands themselves.
क्योंकि ये अंतर्राष्ट्रीय सिटी है पुष्कर, बहुत ही ज़्यादा महत्व, धार्मिक महत्व भी यहाँ ब्रह्मा जी का एकमात्र मंदिर है, तीर्थराज सरोवर है और इसके लिए पूरी दुनिया से लोग यहाँ आते हैं और यहाँ का महत्व और तब बढ़ जाता है जब मैं यहाँ के रेतीले दौरों में इस कलाकृति के जरिए हमारे गौरवशाली इतिहास और संस्कृति को रेत पर दिखाता हूँ।
Pushkar is not just a place, it's an emotion, a spiritual realm painted in the colors of devotion, culture and life. Every year, this fair reminds us that the soul of India lies in its diversity, its folk traditions and its unshakable faith.
Experience Pushkar Fair's vibrant mix of camels, culture, music and devotion as Rajasthan's desert transforms into a colourful cultural celebration. And with that, we come to the end of this week's episode. See you next week. Till then, goodbye and take care.